Whether you like it or not, your wristwatch speaks volumes about who you are as a person. So today we're diving into that. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Chef IQ. More on them later. I'm wearing a beautiful vintage Cartier Tank Louis that is available in the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop. Fantastic Tank Louis, solid 18 karat yellow gold, by the way. Watches, everything you wear, as a matter of fact, says something about you, right? The way we choose to spend our money says something about us, where we choose to live. Everything that we do and partake in speaks volumes about who we are as individuals. Sometimes that judgment is fair, sometimes it's unfair, doesn't matter. But everything does say something. So today we're going to be talking about what your watch says about you naturally. We're going to talk about some Rolex, some Patek, some Grand Seiko, even some Casio and Breguet and Citizen. A lot of cool watches today. I'm looking forward to getting in. Let's do it. The first watch is a banger. The first watch is $150,000 at retail, and it just came up in a conversation between a friend and I just the other day. And it's the Rolex Daytona in platinum with a baguette bezel. Obvious observations first. One, if you know watches, you know that this is basically non-existent. This is not in the catalog. This is an allocation piece, an off-catalog piece. If you own this watch, it means one of two things. Either an authorized dealer really values your relationship and wants to, offer you a very, very rare Rolex, or two, you just paid $300,000 in the gray market for this watch that is incredibly garish and over the top, maybe even ugly. I happen to like it. I happen to think that, this glittering chandelier is in a very guilty way, kind of attractive and kind of hot. But I'm not proud of that. I'm just admitting that I'm human and I've bought into the whole De Beers thing with the diamonds, and I'm an idiot, right? I'm an idiot. What else does it say? It says you definitely have too much money, for sure. At $150 retail, it's still absurd. It also says that you've got a big spend history with an AD, right? Again, assuming you got it there. It says that, you're not afraid, apparently, of being robbed, because this watch screams, rob me. This watch is not stealth wealth at all, which is funny because the Platinum Daytona is, as much as a Rolex can get, kind of stealth wealth, right? Like, it's such an interesting, right? The chocolate brown ceramic, the first Daytona in ceramic, platinum with the ice blue, which is a classic Rolex combination. I mean, there's so much to love about that watch. There's so much that's, relatively speaking, under the radar about that watch. This just turns that entire idea on its head. Now, what would a non-watch person, a person with no context, what would they say about this watch? They would say that you are tasteless. They would probably say that this is absurd. They'd probably be standoffish around you, assuming they were like a reasonable person. And then, if they're the sort of people that, are like really into pyramid schemes, they probably, want to know where you made your money and get into it. You know what I mean? Like they'd have a bunch of questions. That's what this watch says. And I hope that you're watching, buddy. Next watch, Grand Seiko SBGM 221. It's a great watch. This watch screams watch geek, right? This watch has been a fan favorite, a watch enthusiast favorite for quite a few years now. Around $4,500, $4,600, and you can get them pre-owned in the threes even. This is legitimately one of the best buys in watches. It is complicated as a GMT. The colorway is just fantastic. That eggshell with the blue and the silver. I mean, it's fantastic colorway. The proportions, a little over 39 millimeters, 39.5 millimeters, with the thickness and the lugs. It's a perfect watch. This is a perfect Grand Seiko. I think that it is one of the best Grand Seikos of the last, 10, 15 years. Grand Seiko releases a hell of a lot of watches, and it is a huge testament to this particular GMT reference that it would kind of be impossible to do this better. And frankly, some of the models that they've made with the same complication, they made them more complicated with their dial configurations. They sometimes even fall flat compared to this just classic eggshell color. This watch is a sleeper outside of watches, and yet within the watch world, it is a home run. Everyone knows it, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's kind of Grand Seiko as a brand, really, but to a watch enthusiast, this says he knows what he's doing. And to a non-watch enthusiast, I think that it communicates all the right messages. It's interesting. It's conservative. It says that you're, probably smart, but you're not a show-off. Kind of good messages. This is probably a great watch for a professional in an office, with upward mobility. You're going to get respect for participating in this, hobby that's generally associated with successful and socially mobile people. I know that's not everything the hobby is, but it's certainly something the hobby is. And you're not going to be a show off, right? This is a great piece. Next piece, Rolex Dominoes. Well, To a non-watch enthusiast, a Rolex with a Domino's logo on it says that it's probably a fake Rolex. That this is a weird fake Rolex. And that's kind of it. That's kind of the end of that conversation. But now, what does a Rolex Domino model say to a watch geek? It's a good question. Well, one, it depends on when you bought it or whether it was given to you. Because back in the 1980s, Domino's as an organization used Rolexes, particularly these Air Kings, with the Domino's logo on the dial and in a center link as promotional, motivational tools to get franchise owners to sell more. In fact, at one point, the benchmark was a single week of $20,000 in sales. And then it became so competitive and so many people were participating that Domino's raised it to 5 consecutive weeks of $25,000 in sales. Right? They made it a hell of a lot harder to win a Domino's Rolex because what an absurd sort of gift, right? Like what a wild thing. Rolex would never do this today, and it's a really cool piece of history. That being said, it's not just a collector's item. There's certainly more right to the story. If I saw someone wearing this watch, I would know that not only are they an interesting little watch collector that's interested in nuance and Rolex history, that I could talk to them about watches, but also that they're a little bit probably quirky and they don't take themselves too seriously. I don't take myself too seriously, and I would never wear this watch, or I would never own this watch, rather. This is a bizarre piece. This is an absolutely bizarre watch. If I have no affiliation with Domino's especially, and it's what a weird company to even have co-branded, right? Like whereas Tiffany is like this aspirational brand, so it makes sense. Like anyone could like a Rolex Tiffany. It's just two historical, aspirational brands. Whereas Rolex Domino's is, it's like an inside joke. It's like a practical joke. Like I would get my dad a Rolex Domino's Air King because he orders Domino's at midnight when he's had a few. Right? That would be funny. It's also a really expensive gag gift. And oh shit, I should probably get him that watch, shouldn't I? It's actually kind of a cool idea. Oh geez, I shouldn't release this video now. I don't think he watches anyway. It's fine. It's a weird gag gift. It definitely says you don't take yourself too seriously. I wouldn't own this watch, but it is pretty cool. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Chef IQ, the world's smartest and thinnest meat thermometer. I absolutely love Chef IQ. Not only do I use it in my home, my parents do in theirs, and so many of you, the Theo and Harris family, have purchased them now as well, because we just don't really have any patience for the guessing game that is cooking. It's kind of unnecessary to leave things to chance. I don't really believe in leaving controllable things to chance. I also don't believe in wasting money. And I don't think that our meats, our fish, our roasts, our chicken, our Thanksgiving turkey, everything, I don't believe that we should be even risking them being over or undercooked. This is science, and it should be treated as such. And there is no better partner in the kitchen to solve this problem than our friends over at Chef IQ. Their smart thermometer is amazing. Not only does it have an unlimited range for Wi-Fi connectivity, so you can monitor your food from anywhere, but it has, auto calibration, so you don't need to manually recalibrate it. It also has a Chef IQ app where you can not only monitor everything, but also comb through recipes and preparation methods that will, just be invaluable tools in the kitchen. The app features real-time cooking alerts and timers and a live cooking graph as well. Chef IQ works on the grill and in the air fryer, deep fryer, smoker, stove, oven, or even in sous vide. And it's available in a 1, 2, or 3 probe configuration. I couldn't possibly recommend Chef IQ enough. I really mean it. So head on over to Chef IQ and make one your own. Link is down below. Next one, Patek Philippe 3710. Back in 1998, Patek Philippe introduced another Nautilus, right? About 22 years after the original was introduced. And it was a first in many ways. It was a first of two things. Number one, it was the first jumbo Nautilus since the original 3700 that was introduced in 1976. Because after that original 3700 reference, Nautilus watches got a lot smaller and daintier. It's kind of funny how it happened. Patek Philippe and the Nautilus really leaned into, that really vintage, delicate proportion. It's kind of weird. They kind of abandoned so much of what made the Nautilus an interesting design, right? What made the Nautilus and the Royal Oak interesting was the juxtaposition of, big industrial design and elegance. And when Patek Philippe went with the 3800, which is a great watch, but when they went into that, they definitely abandoned all that was, or quite a bit of what was, sporty and sort of industrial. It was kind of interesting. But Then in 1998, with the 3710, they brought that back. They brought back that 42 millimeter case size. But they also introduced the Nautilus, this reference, with a complication for the first time. That wasn't the date, and that was a power reserve. And they also released it with a matte black dial. There's a lot of firsts, a lot of weird things happening at Patek Philippe. So what does this watch say about you? Well, to a watch person, it says you're probably really deep into this and you're definitely a collector, right? Whereas a 5711 may say that, may not. It could just mean you're a hype beast. But a 3710, hype beasts don't wear these watches. They just don't. There's too much to it. And there's so much, if you just want a Nautilus for Nautilus's sake, Nautili's sake, this isn't the one you want. Like, it's got so much that isn't Nautilus. It's so divergent. It doesn't even scratch the Nautilus itch in many ways. It doesn't have the lines, it doesn't have the color gradation, it doesn't have, the cleaner dial. It doesn't have so much, right? So I think this is a really watch geeky watch. Years ago, I remember when I got into this business, you can get these watches in like the $30,000 range, and now they're significant multiple of that. So it also probably says that you've got quite a bit of money invested in this hobby, because there's no way this is your only watch. This is a real big dog collector's watch. If I see you on an airplane with this watch on, I know that you're 100% a player. Now, to someone that doesn't know anything about watches, this watch is nothing. Absolutely nothing. It looks nothing like what people would associate a Patek Philippe with. That's probably more Calatrava than anything else. This watch is nothing. It is, I would say, to an average person, entirely invisible. Entirely invisible. And to someone that's kind of into watches a little bit, I think they would think this is fake, because this isn't even a well-known reference, produced in very few examples. I don't think they would even... I think they would think it was fake. I truly believe that. Really interesting piece. Real quick, Breitling Type 20. I was just asked about this the other day. The new Type 20, I think, is a weird watch because of the retail price around $24,000, trading on the secondary market around $14,000 and $15,000, maybe even lower. I bet if you were selling one, you wouldn't get an offer more than $11,000, maybe even $10,000. I just don't see why this watch happened. I don't see why Breitling went so far to bring back the Type 20, to bring it to life, like they did with Only Watch, and yet include this weird, uncomfortable date window. It really ruins the watch. I was talking to somebody just the other day that was interested in this watch, and they liked it. First of all, as a person that's not quite into watches, couldn't believe the price point, because for most people, a price point like that would come with a brand that is far more notoriety. Breitling is a weird brand, right? Breitling is basically unknown to the entire world and then known in the watch world. And then it's known, but no one really buys them because who wants a Breitling, right? So it's a really weird piece. But if you own it, I would say that you're probably easily parted with your money. And I would say that because if you're really into Breitling, I don't think you'd buy this piece. There are other Breitlings out there that I think represent a better buy. You can get a vintage, which is far more collectible model with better proportions for just a little bit more. I mean, the jump from 24,000 to 32,000 at that point, I mean, it's not really that big of a jump anymore, right? At that level of money, it doesn't make sense why you would choose the more modern, less nice version, right? And for a non-watch aficionado, this watch is, again, totally invisible. If you told a non-watch guy that this watch was $24,000, they would not believe you, laugh at you, or think you're an idiot, right? At least if you show them a gold Rolex, they'd be like, okay, that makes sense. You're rich. They look at this, they'd be like, what are you talking about? This is cool. Good for you. Enjoy. And that'd be the end of it, right? I think you were probably weird. At least with my Breitling tradition, even a non-watch aficionado may think it's ugly. That's totally possible. But a non-watch aficionado would say, oh, wow, yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but yeah, you could tell that this is like a really expensive piece. You could tell that there's a lot going on here. Even if they can't articulate it, they don't even know what it is, they would say, there's a lot here. I can see why this is expensive. The Breitling Type 20 at 24 grand, nothing. And anyone that's going to try to buy them on a bargain at 14,000, aren't there just better chronos at that price point? Aren't there even better Breitlings at half that price point? Better Breitling chronographs? It doesn't make any sense. This whole release didn't make any sense. Breitling tried to ride the wave of the Only Watch, and I don't think it worked. And it's a shame because it's such a great history, right? 1950s, both civilian and military application or production. Such a beautiful design. And yet, then they really missed the mark here. Next, Citizen Soyosa. I love this watch. I think this is great. I saw one the other day, particularly in yellow. I think it says that you don't take life too seriously and you know what a value prop is. It also probably tells me that you know something about watches. It could also mean I don't know all of their points of retail, but it's possible that you don't know what it is and you kind of just bought it at a mall. It's possible, but I think it's unlikely because to watch geeks, the value is evident, right? Under $500, this is a fantastic automatic, watch, really cool design, and it's great. It's a great watch. But to someone that doesn't know anything about watches and doesn't understand that's a great value prop, I think $400 is like a lot of money to spend on a watch. So the kind of person that's looking for a colorful mall watch probably isn't going to spend $400. They probably want a different brand, right, at a different price point because they don't understand the value. So I think that if you're wearing this watch, odds are you're a watch guy that likes to have fun, and I think that it's a great brand and a great model. I think you're doing just fine. Like I gave you more credit than I've given the people that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And last but not least, the Casio F91W. It says one of three things. I'll give you three things. One, you're like a Napoleon Dynamite kind of dork. This is a dork's watch, no doubt about it. So either you're a Napoleon Dynamite dork, or you're a Brooklyn or Brooklyn adjacent hipster that likes to kind of, play with that techie, dorky kind of vibe. It's definitely a cheeky kind of watch to wear. Great piece at like $20 or whatever it is. They're absolutely, great piece. They're handsome and they work and they're kind of classics of the watch world introduced in the 1990s, still remaining unchanged. Definitely a pillar of digital watchmaking. But, you're a hipster and, I don't know how much we have in common. And then last but not least, you're a terrorist. Really weird connection between the F91W and our, favorite terrorists of the last 30 years that have used these watches, maybe because they're cheap and disposable, to cause a lot of destruction. Really weird. A lot of photos of bin Laden wearing them. And I'm not a bin Laden guy. I actually don't think I'd buy this watch just because of my association, just because of the association. I actually don't think I'd buy this watch simply because of the association. It kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth. So my message to you hipsters out there is find a different digital watch. I wouldn't be shopping at the same store as Osama bin Laden. So anyway, I will leave you with that and have a great day. Go to the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop and explore our collection of beautiful vintage watches.